Let's get to your top stories. And hospitalizations and deaths triggered by COVID-19 increasing once again in Puerto Rico as the Delta variant continues to spread. Our Christian Ramos is there.
The COVID-19 situation in Puerto Rico is getting more severe as the Delta variant cases continue increasing. And recently, the island reported 20 deaths on a single day, one of the highest rates of all the year.
It's never good to see anyone die. We're seeing right now about 9, 10 deaths a day. Like you already said, there were 20 yesterday. Imagine if we had 20 deaths every day because of murders. The amount of response from the state will be gigantic. For some reason, we have become numb, and we see all these deaths, and we are hearing them every day. And at some point, I think that everybody now expects those kind of numbers, and those numbers are very high. We set a goal that we shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 deaths per day. We don't like any of the numbers. We have been talking about that a lot. We should set goals. One of those goals is having less than 300 cases per day. And we are around 900. Hospitalization should never get above 320 by the whole world, by definition of the whole World Health Organization. And we are in the 500s. So yes, it's very concerning. We have to make adjustments as soon as everybody starts realizing that everybody has to roll in the same direction. We will get out of this earlier, faster, and with a lot of relatives alive. That's what we want. We want to share, and we have to keep our relatives alive. We want to return to normalcy, but everybody has to cooperate.
Right now, 80% of the positives in Puerto Rico have the Delta variant, which is more lethal and contagious. Martinez, who is also a member of the scientific coalition appointed by Governor Pedro Pierluisi, accepted that the situation could get more complicated because the local medical sector doesn't come with the necessary personnel to handle a more dramatic scenario.
The reality is that the States is robbing us a lot of professionals. I mean, a lot of nurses are migrating to Florida and migrating to Texas. There's an active recruitment of physicians and nurses here. So as long as other states have more cases, that also affects us. I mean, you cannot get nurses out of nowhere. You don't produce them in the amount you need them. So what they do, they take them or recruit them from other states. The problem is that they're recruiting a lot of our physicians, a lot of our nurses, and we are not able to handle the same amount of patients as before.
Martinez told that the situation could get out of control if people do not cooperate. So now more than ever, it's important to wear a mask and get vaccinated. Reporting from San Juan, Puerto Rico, Christian Ramos.
And much of the same story in the Turks and Caicos. Medical officials there sounding the alarm as COVID cases continue to rise. They're also seeing an overflow in their hospitals, meaning their ICU beds will eventually fill up. And there's now a new mandate in place. So if you want to go out to a bar or nightclub, yeah, you are going to have to be vaccinated. Here's our DeAndre Hamilton.
Turks and Caicos is seeing a spike in COVID-19 cases, which have exhausted hospital bed capacity in Providenciales and led to the country's 20th death, a woman who passed away on Sunday. There is also the frightening reality that once wide open doors for medical care abroad for residents are narrowing fast.
The TCI hospitals does not have a ICU capacity and only has HDU, which is high dependency unit capacity. If your conditions turn to the worst, particularly with COVID-19, we have to fly you out.
That was the new Minister of Health for the Turks and Caicos, Jamel Robinson. He held a press conference Thursday night with changes to regulations, including a new mandate. Partygoers must now be fully vaccinated.
Number 4, patrons at nightclubs and bars must provide proof of being fully vaccinated. Number 5, bars and clubs to be responsible for verifying the identity and vaccination status of all participants, and a logbook kept with the same and shared with the Ministry of Health and the Environmental Health Department every Monday.
Vaccination levels are impressive for the tiny British overseas territory. 69% of adults and 35% of children have been vaccinated with the now FDA-approved Pfizer-BioNTech doses. The country's chief medical officer advised she is watching trends and uptake to determine what happens for the planned reopening to face-to-face learning at schools across the islands.
The pace of the vaccine rollout has significantly slowed over recent weeks, despite our best efforts.
Turks and Caicos Health and Education are partnered for a back-to-school vaccination drive.
Well, the U.S. Agency for International Development has announced $32 million in assistance to Haiti. The country, of course, reeling from that earthquake a couple of weeks ago that killed more than 2,000 people and destroyed or damaged tens of thousands of homes. Well, the hardest hit areas are hard to gain access to, and the earthquake, followed by Tropical Storm Grace, just posing further challenges. So this aid money, again, $32 million. Welcome news.
As we build on this initial response, I am pleased here to announce
Pendant que nous continuons à bâtir sur réponse initiale ça, moi très content pour m'annoncer aujourd'hui
that USAID will provide an additional $32 million as part of a broader American response
que USAID pral bay mettre sur côté $32 millions qui pourra faire partie d'une réponse plus à long terme de gouvernement de USAID et du gouvernement américain.
to support people here affected by the earthquake.
Pour supporter monde qui affecté par tremblement de terre.
The Prime Minister and I spoke about the Haitian government's sense of the priorities of the people.
Premier ministre Henry avec moi nous sommes parlé de qui ça que gouvernement haïtien ouais comme priorité pour aider peuple haïtien.
And how not only USAID and not only the entire U.S. government, but the broader international community can best meet those needs.
Now, according to UNICEF, more than 500,000 children in Haiti were affected by the earthquake, which was, of course, the worst there since that devastating quake from back in 2010. And we do have more information on the COVID-related death on board of a cruise ship earlier this week. We now know a 77-year-old woman died from COVID-19 after testing positive while sailing on a Carnival cruise to Belize. That woman actually died back on August 14th. According to the New York Times, the woman departed on Carnival Vista with her family on July 31st and tested positive after experiencing some respiratory complications. She was admitted to a hospital while in Belize and put on a ventilator before being evacuated to Oklahoma, where she died. Now, Carnival officials say they're almost certain that passenger didn't contract the virus on their ship, but they have since implemented additional health and safety measures. Vaccinated travelers will now be required to present both a proof of vaccination and a negative COVID test at check-in. Unvaccinated guests must be tested twice before boarding the ship and again at debarkation. Well, Duran Duran, Elton John, The Police, they've actually recorded some of their biggest albums in the same studio, which is on a tiny Caribbean island, believe it or not. And a new documentary is taking viewers back to the 1980s and that famous studio. Rick Damigella reports.
His idea was to take people out of an environment, to put them into harmony with nature.
Going to Montserrat was like going into a dream.
Sir George Martin's Air Studios Montserrat is the subject of the documentary Under the Volcano.
It was so successful. It was a hit factory.
There's no question doing the 2 records in the Caribbean like that was very special and kind of magical in a way.
The Police recorded the Ghost in the Machine and Synchronicity albums at the studio.
In a way, it was so beautiful that it could have been seen as a distraction. So rather than being, say, in London or New York and recording in a basement studio where you just be on the music, because you didn't want to go outside with all that. Outside was paradise hanging around. So, one had to be maybe ultra disciplined to be in the studio and focused on the music.
The music video for Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic was filmed in the studio, featuring Andy Summers' unusual dancing location.
got this I don't know how much, probably $2 million worth of recording desk, and you know, there's me like dancing across it like light of foot. I'm a trained dancer. So I didn't actually hurt anything, but of course it's outrageous that I did that. But there you go.
There was no doubt there was a magic on Montserrat.
This was sort of the rock star dream.
In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.